Chad Blackwater, our Stoveside Chat personality, has turned the camera over to us, marketing specialists.
I'm Zach.
Christina.
Caitlyn.
Beth. Today is National Stuffing Day, and to celebrate, we are going to make 4 different types of North Carolina stuffing.
But we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. We're going to turn it into a competition. We've invited one of our colleagues, Jack, who doesn't like to claim he's a foodie.
But he is a certified steak judge.
So there is that. So he's going to judge each of our different stuffings. Some of us are making stuffing, some are making dressing, and he's going to tell us which one is the best at the end.
To find the full recipes of these dressings and stuffings, visit gottobnc.com. Let's get cooking.
In my family for Thanksgiving, we always have dressing. It's kind of a thing that we never really had stuffing, and once I got to school and other people talked about stuffing, I really had no idea what they were talking about. So for National Stuffing Day, since dressing is what we do in our family, that's what I'm going to make. I'm actually going to make the recipe that my grandmother made, and then it was passed down to my mom and my aunt, and they continue that tradition today. So how you start? You start with 6 pieces of potato bread. I have already toasted them and chopped them up like they need to be. They're right here. So in addition to that, I'll need 1 egg, some chicken broth, which is right here, 3/4 a can of cream of celery, and then I have half a cup of chopped up onion right here, and then 1.5 cups of herb seasoned dressing mix. So what you do is you combine all of this into the same mixing bowl. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to mix in the dry ingredients first. Go ahead and pour that chicken broth in there. Get that poured over the entire, all the breading and the onions. I'm going to spoon out 3/4 of the can of cream celery. Mix that over there. There we go. And then finally, I'm going to crack that egg and mix it in. Put that in there. Take this big old spoon. Try to mix all that in well. So once we get all that mixed in together, I am going to grease my pan. An interesting thing that, an addition that you can have to this is what a lot of people do is mix in oysters and it becomes oyster dressing. I personally am not a big fan of oysters, so I'm skipping that step. But I do know generally at our Thanksgiving dinner, we have both one with oysters and without oysters. Get that pan greased up real good. I'm going to pour this mix into the pan. Definitely want to make sure that I get that smoothed out over the pan so it's evenly cooked. Get that smoothed out. And what I'm going to do, we're going to bake it in the oven at 375 for an hour. So I've already had my oven preheated over here. So once I have that nice and smoothed out, I'm going to throw that in there, turn on the timer, and it'll be ready for Jack to try it in an hour. It smells really good. Looks just like the way my grandmother used to have it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it up for Jack to be able to sample it. It's a little gooey on the inside, but crisp on the outside, so that's just the way it's supposed to be. So there we go.
All right, today I'm going to make a southern cornbread dressing. I got my cast iron skillet, all the ingredients right here in front of me, ready to go. I'll go over each thing as I go. This recipe is new to me also, so we're gonna learn together today. In other dishes that I've done before that require me to grease a pan or butter a pan, a trick that I like to do is kind of open the butter up, leave it open a little bit, but keep the wrapping on the end part of it so you can grease the dish. I've set the oven to 400 degrees, and I'm going to go ahead and make the cornbread part of this dish. I'm using House Autry Mills, which is a North Carolina company. They are super great. They have more than just cornmeal. They have so many other products out there too. So I'm gonna go ahead and put all of my dry ingredients for the cornbread into my cast iron skillet, which is 1 1/2 cup of yellow cornmeal, which is this, 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Go ahead and put that in there. 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. This is all the salt that I will need for the entire dish, but for just this I need 1 teaspoon. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball that. Go ahead and stir that up, combining all the dry ingredients. All right, in a separate bowl, I'm gonna put together my wet ingredients. And the wet ingredients include 2 eggs, 1 cup of buttermilk, 1/2 cup of butter. I actually need to melt this. Add that into my bowl of wet ingredients here and whisk it all together. So I'm gonna combine my wet ingredients with my dry ingredients. A typical chef would tell you to, before you put it in the pan that you're cooking in, to have the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients and then combine together, but I'm doing it kind of quick today. So I'm just gonna incorporate the wet ingredients with the dry here and mix it together until it's evenly distributed. Whatever dry places you leave, like powdery places you leave in this pan, will burn in the oven. So you want to make sure all of the wet ingredients are incorporated in. All right, now I'm gonna take my fork, get all the excess goop off, and then kind of brush over the top and smooth it out so we're not lumpy. Okay, so we have incorporated our wet ingredients, our dry ingredients. We have our oven preheated to 400, and now we're gonna pop it in for 20 to 22 minutes. While the cornbread is in the oven, I'm gonna prepare my next dish to incorporate with this dish. So I'm gonna get a 9 by 13 baking pan, and with the same butter that I used before as my butter stick, I'm gonna grease the bottom of this pan as well. I went ahead and diced my onions. You'll need 1 large yellow onion, 3 cloves of garlic, and 1 medium-sized celery stalk. So I went ahead and chopped that all up for us. And my pan is heating on medium-high, and I'm also gonna drop some butter into the pan as well, just to get that pan greased up as well. And I'm gonna go ahead and take my vegetables and slide them off into here. I'm gonna try to separate my garlic and put the garlic in there last because garlic burns quicker. So I'm gonna let these the onion get translucent before I add my garlic in. It'll only take a couple minutes. Just keep an eye on it When the onions get to be about that color, translucent, they're ready. And next you can put in your garlic. Okay, now the onions and garlic and all that should be all good to go. Just set it on a cold eye or off to the side. We need 2 more eggs. It calls for 1 cup of warmed chicken stock. Add it to the same bowl I cracked my eggs in. I need 2 tablespoons of melted butter. I'm gonna whisk it together. Make sure you beat those eggs. All right, my cornbread is ready to take out of the oven. It is golden brown, and to check the cornbread, you just simply stick a toothpick in the center. If any residue comes on the toothpick, just pop it in for a couple more minutes. And that's a clean pull out. So this should be good to go. We're gonna let it sit for 10 minutes, cool enough for me to be able to pull it and break it apart with my hands. And the recipe says to actually leave some of the bigger pieces so that there's good texture in the dish. All right, I'm gonna pour it into this bigger mixing bowl because we're gonna add some other ingredients. Now I'm gonna add the rest of my salt, 2 tablespoons of parsley, 1 tablespoon of dried sage, and 1 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. So all of that's going in here. I have my egg, butter, and chicken stock mixture that I'm about to also incorporate into this mixing bowl. Now I'm going to incorporate the onions, garlic, and celery that I cooked on the stove earlier. And we'll give this a good stir. So I'm going to get my pan that I buttered up earlier and put all of this good mixture into the pan. My oven is preset to 375, and then I'm going to flatten this down, spread it out evenly, and now we're going to pop it in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes.
All right, so today I chose a sweet potato and pork sausage dressing since North Carolina is the #1 producer for sweet potatoes and a top 5 producer in pork. We have lots of great North Carolina ingredients also with this. So we're gonna get started. The first step is to prep the sweet potatoes. They've already been boiled for 20 to 25 minutes with a little bit of salt in the water. Next, I'll peel them and cube them up. Now that the sweet potatoes are all cubed up, the next step is to preheat the oven to 350 and to grease a 9x13 baking dish. Those steps are done, so next we will go work on sauteing the onions and cooking the celery. So I've added 2 tablespoons of butter into the saucepan. We're gonna let that melt a little bit, and we will add 1 small onion. And we'll add some celery. And we'll cook until tender. So So we have a ½ teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon poultry seasoning, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Once mixed, we'll put this in a bowl, set it to the side, and we'll brown the sausage next. All right, yay! So now we have 1 pound of pork sausage. Our sausage is ready. We'll start mixing everything together. So we already have our bowl, the onions and the celery that we prepared. Really set aside. So now we have our sausage with the onions and the celery. So we're adding in, we have 15 ounces of croutons. We have 1 apple, peeled and cored. On this plate, we have a ½ cup of raisins, ½ cup of cranberries. I'm gonna lightly beat 1 egg. Our next step, melt the butter. Our last bit to add before the sweet potatoes is a little bit of chicken bouillon mixed in with hot water. Our last bit is to gently add the sweet potatoes. So we're gonna stir gently. I think I overcooked the sweet potatoes. All right, last step, it goes in the oven, 350 degrees for a ½ hour. Ta-da!
So I have brought a very special and important recipe to the table today, and I'm very prepared with my apron, and I'm going to get my hair up for food safety purposes. This is a recipe that my grandmother has actually passed down to me, and so it's very meaningful to me because she and I have a lot of similarities. So when my grandma had her kids growing up, she focused on the boxed food, and that was a time whenever people in the women in the workforce were starting to get out there and, you know, have 9-to-5 jobs. And I'm similar in that regard, that I don't have time for this mess, and we're just going to make what we can out of the time I have at home. So as you can see, I have a lovely stovetop stuffing mix for turkey. The other people have no idea that I'm doing this, and so I'm just going to do this, try and get out of here before 5 o'clock tonight, and we'll see how it goes. One thing that I decided to do to kind of make it go a little bit quicker, since you know it's not going to be quick enough as is on the stove, is use the microwave. So Abe, could you please help me out with the microwave?
Sure thing.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, just put it right there for me. Okay, so with this stovetop stuffing, the first thing you want to do is go ahead and heat up your water. And so I'm going to go ahead and put this on for about 3 minutes. Let's see. Here. All right, so our water has been thoroughly heated, and all you have to do now is move it into a bigger bowl. Cut up some butter, put in here, and then mix in the stuffing mix. According to the directions, you combine the stuffing mix, 1.5 cups of hot water, and 1/4 cup of cut up margarine or butter, but we use butter because it's North Carolina and that would be a sin to use margarine. And then we put it in the bowl, cover it, and throw it in the microwave for high, or on high for 5 to 6 minutes. So we're just gonna kind of do that, mix it up. We use what we have here at the state on our state budget. So it's on high for 5 minutes, and since we're waiting and I'm not going to waste your taxpayer dollars, it's really time to check my email. Hey, yeah, I'm in the middle of a very important recipe right now. I cannot talk. It's probably going to take another 2 or so hours, but I'll be with you as soon as I get done. I'm just trying to get out of here before 5 today. All right, thanks. Talk to you later. Bye. All right, the microwave is done. I'm going to go ahead and put my computer away for the time being. They will never know. Oh yeah, that's much better. Beautiful. They will never know.
Okay. All right, so for fourth place, I ranked this low because really nothing is interesting about it. The texture was very uniform, but not really anything of interest, and the flavors were mild and nothing that really stood out about this dressing. Third place, something that was a little more familiar from my childhood. It had good flavor. It had some nice texture to it. So each bite had some interest, but just not as much as the other dishes. First and second were a little more difficult to choose between. I really liked the second place dish. Good flavor, nice texture, and it reminded me most of my childhood dressing dishes that I had, and would not mind being invited to this house if the dressing's being served. The first place choice, also very flavorful, but a lot going on with it that made it interesting, a lot of flavor, a lot of different textures, and so it was a much more interesting dish to eat, and was very enjoyable.